Today we're going to talk about driving enterprise transformation with behavioral data in Microsoft 365. And my name is Sofia Edholm. I work in our modern workplace team at Microsoft as a technical specialist within collaboration.
And my name is Mathias Ericson, and I have the same role as Sofia has. So also technical solutions professional.
Good. So, 12 p.m., it's Thursday. What happens then? Anyone? It's lunchtime and so on. At this time, a highly productive company will have accomplished the same amount as an average company will do in an entire work week. And this number comes from Bain & Company's book, Time, Talent, Energy. And there they present a productivity index where they look at what they call organizational drag. And that's kind of wasted time in our company. So examples of that would be ineffective meetings, or if we have long decision processes, or if it's unclear who takes decisions in our organization. It doesn't create value for our organization, and it becomes wasted time. And in the center of the number that we're seeing here is the employee and how the employee spends its time. So to give you a little parallel, if someone asked you to just give them 1,000 crowns, would you do that? Probably we would say no, or at least we would ask, what are you going to use the money for? But when someone comes and demands our time or asks for our time, we're very quick of just handing it out without really thinking about what we're doing there. So for a company to accomplish this and be highly productive, we need to understand how we distribute our employees in the organization. And both the employee and the company needs to understand our working patterns. And a challenge with this is that we all do information work today. Well, not all of us, but a big chunk of us do information work. And the definition of information work or knowledge work is non-routine cognitive work. So that means that we will not be doing the same thing day 1, 2, and 3. It will look different. And a big part of us getting forward and making decisions is us actually thinking. And at the same time, the world is moving so quickly around us right now. And for us as an organization to be relevant in that world, we need to be as agile. We need to be able to move as quickly as the world. And that has increased our collaboration. So we collaborate 2 times as much as we did just 5 years ago. So if you think about this picture, how can we understand where our time is going in the organization if we're not doing the same thing? We're collaborating with other people that do different things during their days, and we use our brains to get forward. How do we get insight in that? So if we look at some statistics that we've gotten from looking at behavioral data, first of all, we can agree that everyone has the same amount of time every day, right? We have 24 hours or 1,440 minutes each. If we look at how we spend it at work, it looks something like this. It's pretty powerful numbers. 47% of our meeting time is unproductive. We check our mailbox 30 times an hour. That's every second minute. It goes 3 minutes, generally, between us being interrupted by someone. Do you know how long it takes for us to get back into productive flow after we've been interrupted? Anyone heard that number? 25? I've heard 15. That's the statistics I have. So we're interrupted every third minute, and it takes us 15 minutes to get back into productive flow. This is not sustainable. And at the same time, 48% say that their work interfere with their private life. And on the global market, we have 13% of engagement at work. So this is the reality that we're facing. And as an organization, we need to be able to handle this landscape somehow. But the positive thing is that there's hope. Rob Cross, he does a lot of research in this area. He says that by doing 4 to 5 things differently, we can get back 18 to 24% of our time. And most of us are in some kind of transformational journey right now, which means that we have the chance right now to do something in a better way. If we're going to transform and put a lot of energy and effort into that, why not do into the better? But the problem here is that we don't know what good or great looks like. Because of the slide I showed you earlier, we don't know how it looks when we work. So 50% of all the efforts that we do actually fail just because we don't change our behaviors. And this is where we at Microsoft see that behavioral analytics and behavioral data will really play a big part. Because we can look at objectively, how does our digital landscape look today? How would we want it to look in the future? And exactly what is it that we have to change? What kind of behaviors do we have to get into our organization in order to make that happen? So we have 2 services in Microsoft 365 that handles these, or this, and they're all based on these 4 KPIs. These KPIs is what we have seen helps you drive a better working pattern. And then we're looking at collaboration hours, which is basically how much time do we spend in meetings, how much time do we spend on email, in chat, and on calls. And when we start to map that, we can also understand how much time do we spend after hours, working at nights or at weekends, and how long are our working hours? When do we start on Monday and go home on Friday, or if we're unlucky on Sunday? Because unfortunately, that's the climate that we're facing right now. Even if we're not working all weekends, we do work a little bit every day. So we can start to map that and really understand how it looks in our organization. The other thing that we're measuring out of the box is manager time. And this is a number that we've seen affect the way that we work in a lot of ways, in a lot of good ways. One example would be that we don't do what we're told, right? We do what other people do, and their coaching becomes very important. So if we can make sure and educate our managers on spending the right amount of time in direct contact with their employees, we can really make a difference and change the behavior. We're looking at meeting quality, which is tightly coupled, of course, to collaboration hours. But here we deep dive even more in how our meeting structures looks. This is one of the biggest time spenders when we get it wrong, so it's super important to look into that carefully. And we look at things like how long our meetings are, but also how broad they are, how many people we have in them, and also do we have the right kind of people there, are the right roles there that needs to be part of the decision process and so on. Have you guys heard of the rule of 7? No one? Someone? Cool. It says that for every person above 7, the chance that we're actually gonna come to a decision in a meeting will decrease with 10%. So if we have 8 people in the meeting, it's gonna decrease 10%. 9 people in the meeting, 10% more. And that's the kind of things that we want to start to understand. How do we do it in our organization, and what is our goal? Where are we wasting time? And we look at network size, because when we collaborate as much as we do today, it becomes very, very important that we have connections to the right people in the organization so we can take decisions fast. If we work in silos and so on, it will be longer decision-making processes. And here we can look at both network size and network breadth, which is more the are we working with the right people in the organization kind of thing. And we can also look at external signals, and I'm gonna demo this if we're lucky a bit later. But like I mentioned then, we have two products out of the box in Office 365 that helps you start looking into this. And then it's Workplace Analytics, which is there for decision makers. So this kind of measures your whole company. It's all de-identified, so we can't see on individual level who does what. It's more a measurement of how does it look in one part of the organization contra another, and finding those patterns. And then we have MyAnalytics, which is for the employee, so you individually to find your working patterns and understand where you are putting in your time, and also how you spend other people's time actually. As we're getting higher in the hierarchy in the companies, it becomes very important to think about how do I spend my employees' time also. And MyAnalytics also gives us kind of concrete tips on how to change our behaviors. And these are both built on Microsoft Graph, which is the intelligence in our entire platform, Microsoft 365. And what's wonderful with that is that the graph has an API. So you can actually extend that to include all the signals that's relevant for you to look at behavioral data. So we can extend our out-of-the-box solution. And we can then use Power BI to realisera. How do you say that? Realize the value. Show the value, maybe. And this is how we see it working. We start in Workplace Analytics, start with diagnosing and getting the insight from there, and find our hypothesis. So that could be, as an example, we're looking at employee engagement, seeing these signals. Let's say that we see that in Sweden, we have very engaged employees. In Norway, they're not engaged at all, and people start leaving our organization and so on. Then we can start looking at these working patterns. How do we work in Sweden? What's not there from the Norwegian group? And then reapply what we find, kind of. And that we do through MyAnalytics. So we can create a program, we can set goals and measure our progress. In there, we also can make an action plan with these concrete suggestions on how to change our behavior. And then, of course, we can measure it, because when we're changing our behaviors, the data should reflect in Workplace Analytics. And this is also one of the things that has been very hard when it comes to transformational efforts. We don't actually know the impact of what we're doing. When we're looking into data, it can become very objective and clear the kind of transformation that we drive. So I'm going to let Mathias talk about how some customers have used this, and also Microsoft, I think.
Yes. So now we'll look a bit how we as Microsoft, but also our customers, actually implement these solutions. So we'll go over 4 use cases. One is internal, and the rest are external. And some are due to companies seeking new opportunities, how they can optimize stuff, while some are about how we have a pain point and we need to solve the solution. So the first one is about manager effectiveness. So there was a company that had a real big issues with people leaving the organization, and they needed to find out why and how they could solve this. And you probably have heard the term that people leave their managers, they do not leave companies. This is very common. So they looked at this, they did surveys within the company, and found out that the most engaged employees in our company have regular one-to-one meetings with their managers. So then they implemented a 12-month program through this, where they reminded both the employees and the managers that, hey, you should book a one-to-one meeting with your manager. You haven't seen him or her in 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. And in 12 months, they managed to drop the iteration rate, which is personalomsättning in Swedish, by 50%. And as we know, this results in gigantic cost savings because hiring new employees is much more expensive than keeping the talent we actually have within our company. So this is the first one, and this is external. And the second one is more of an opportunity. There was a sales organization that had a group of people that were performing really well, so they wanted to take this kind of group and see what are they doing, like, and how can we implement this on the rest of our sales organization. So they again looked at the data about their top performing salespeople, and they found out that people that are top performers have more time with their customers, which makes sense. If we're more with our customers, we will sell more. But they also found out that time spent with higher level management also impacts this very much. So we need to get insights from our managers and even managers above that what we should do to get some guidance, because they often have more experience than we do. And they also have a very big internal network, which means we can find the people in our organization that can help us close the deal, basically. So they again did a program, and the people that adopted this program exceeded their quota by 130%, while the people that didn't adopt this program didn't exceed their quota. And in the difference they made was $237 million US. This is also external customer. And this is also an external customer, and this is actually a public use case. So this is Macy's from the US. They had huge problems with meetings. They had meetings all the time and felt like we need to change this culture. And who in here has been in a bad meeting? And who has emailed during a meeting? And who has felt like I shouldn't be in this meeting if I email in this meeting? Yeah, so this was kind of Macy's problem. So they came to Microsoft and wanted help. So what they did, they again did a survey, which is data that you can lift into Workplace Analytics. And they looked at when we have really big meetings, like Sofia said, then the engagement goes down and also the innovation. When our managers have conflict in meetings and maybe don't show up, which is not super uncommon, it also brings down, of course, engagement and innovation. But also that reoccurring meetings are not always the best. Like we can have a meeting every week, but it doesn't mean that we have to have that meeting. And this again goes back to what Sofia said, with if someone gives you 1,000 kronor, then you will be like, why are you giving me this? But if someone sends you a meeting invite, you're like, okay, whatever, I will take this. So this was something they wanted to change. So they did this transformation and managed to cut down 4 hours of meetings for every employee every week, which gave them more focus hours, which is what we want as information workers. And overall, after they run this survey again, the results was that we have 50% lower organizational load. So arbetsbelastning in Swedish. So this is amazing. And this is from Microsoft. And this is a bit more fun, maybe. A different use case that you maybe don't think about. So what happened is there was an engineering organization of 1,200 people at our HQ in Redmond. And in Redmond, it's like a city. It's like different buildings. So these 1,200 people had 5 buildings, and they wanted to see how can we optimize this when we rebuild the offices. So they checked where people have the meetings. They checked the travel time and their network, like who is meeting with who in this 1,200 people organization, and decided to cut down the number of buildings to 4 instead of 5. So the travel time got less. Our meetings got shorter, and also since we had a smaller space, everybody grew their network. So this is what happened. They managed to reduce 46% in meeting time, and meeting length went down and network increased. And of these 1,200 people, there was cost saving of $500,000. So now Sofia will go into more how we do this.
Yeah. I'm gonna show you the products and hope that it's working. There we go. So what we're looking at right now is workplace analytics, and it's very few well-selected people that will have access to this portal. And for demo purposes, I'm a decision maker or analyst right now, okay? So first we see some highlights, how many employees we actually measure and total number of collaboration hours and so on. Under business scenarios, right now we only have one here, or can I scroll down? No. We have another one, but it's not in this demo environment. The business scenarios, they help you make a plan. So it's a generic template, kind of. So this one, collaboration overload, if you open it, you will get some background information. Why is it important to handle this? What types of signals in our product do we think you should measure and look at to improve it? And you can use it as a base for the own plan that you want to do. And if we go to Explore, this is where we can start deep diving in data. And as you can see, what we see up here in the top correlates to the KPIs that I was talking about. So week in life is collaboration hours, meeting overviews, of course, meeting quality, management and coaching, networks and collaboration. And we're actually gonna introduce a third one up here that's called external collaboration as well, where you can look at how do my company or organization work with other partners, with other customers, and look into what the collaboration we do in our company actually costs towards them, and get a much better understanding of how we're spending our time. And if we look at week in life, first we'll get a summary, which we will get in each tab, and we can scroll down and start deep diving in the metrics that we have. So in this case, we've divided it by departments. This is up to you. Actually, when we're setting up this product, you can slice it as it's important for your organization. And we can look at the different groups here. Sales, for instance, we can see it's a bit higher compared to average. If we look at after-hours collaboration, we can see that marketing is clearly sticking out. If we start looking at these metrics, we can also see that it's after July that we've really started skyrocketing on this, and start understanding kind of, okay, what happened at that time in our organization? Was it a big change, or did someone leave? How come that the workload is so high for these employees now? And start getting down to what the problem really is. What is it that we need to change? Internal versus external working hours. In this case here, we can see that internal hours are very high. Even for sales, for instance, like it's totally okay that operations maybe don't spend that much time in external collaboration. But if sales spend like 90% of their time in internal collaboration, where does that put us? Is that effective? This one is super important. Focus hours versus fragmented hours. I mentioned the number 15 before, that it takes 15 minutes until we get into a productive flow. If we have fragmented hours our entire day, that will mean that we have no time to focus, which will mean we will work after hours. And this is tightly coupled also to our meeting culture again, so everything correlates. But we can start looking at that. Work week span is when we start our week and when we finish our week, and the total number of hours. And if this one is consistent, like for sales, again, maybe we start asking the question, is this what we want? Them to have over 45, or what was the number? Hours every week, or so on, 66 even. We don't have time to go through it all, but I also wanted to show a little bit of what we're measuring in meeting quality, because that one is very important, like I've said many times now. So redundant hours, it's about us being in the same meetings as skip level managers. So me, my manager, and a manager's manager in the same meeting. If we have a high number here, it's a good indicator that something's wrong with our organizational structure, or that we lack trust. If my manager always have to be in the same meeting as me, what am I doing there? If he can't delegate and so on. Very not productive. Multitasking, that's pretty self-explanatory. And it's if we're reading these emails, if we're sending emails, if we're chatting when we're in the room. Maybe we have too long meetings, maybe there's too many people in the meeting, or the wrong decision makers in the room. Conflicting hours is something we see goes high. It goes up higher in the organization. So it's mostly executives that have this problem. That means that I accept more than one meeting in my calendar at the same time. And if I'm Mrs. Decision Maker and decides on the spot, I think I make more impact of going to this meeting today than this one that I've also accepted. What is that going to do with the meeting that I'm not showing up to? I've just wasted a lot of people's time. I've put workload on my employees or on my colleagues without any value at all. And these numbers we can actually count into money. So we take a number of how much your employees earn, like an average, and get an indicator of what it actually costs in your organizations when you're having these kind of behaviors. So in Explore we can start deep diving. I can't go through everything, but this becomes very impactful first when we start to reference this or cross-reference this with your guys' organizational data. So in sources, you decide what kind of attributes or metrics, it's not loading, but you want to take in here. And for instance, I mentioned engagement earlier. So if you have pulse surveys or polls and that kind of thing, measure that in your organization, you can take in the results here and then start slicing and dicing the data after your metrics. That could also be sales quota, that could be your Azure AD information, so you can slice and dice the information from the right way. And that's when we can start looking in Explore, maybe filter on all employees that have answered above average on engagement. How does their work patterns look? And the one that are below average, how does their work patterns look? And what is it that we have to change to get one kind of work pattern to the rest of the organization? And what we've looked at so far is what we have out of the box. But I also mentioned that these products are built on Microsoft Graph, which of course holds so many data signals that are outside of the KPIs that we looked at. And you can actually reach all of that data through Workplace Analytics as well. And then we use the queries. So here you can make your own queries and decide what kind of metrics is it that we want to extract. And you get that information, you can put it into Power BI to start looking at the metrics from other ways that we have out of the box in the product, and really, really deep dive into what kind of problems you might be having in your organization. And the last step is to bridge it towards MyAnalytics, where the end users will actually change their behaviors. So I mentioned that we can create programs, and that you do here in Solutions. And let's look in MyAnalytics what it looks like when I'm part of a program. So here in this case, I'm a regular employee. And we'll start with the program because that's where we left. So Megan here is a part of the program Reduce Meeting Overload. And we can see that everyone in this group started on an average of 25 hours. So far into the program, we've gotten down to 20 hours. Megan herself is down to 17. She can track her progress. And here we also have the action plan that you guys set up. And this one gives us concrete insights into kind of what should we do differently in order to meet the goals in this program. And this tab right here will only show up if someone in Workplace Analytics has assigned this program to you, but we always have this Explore and Trends tab. So in Explore, I have my personal dashboard, and as you can see, this one is also built up of the API, so I can see meeting hours, email hours, focus hours, after hours, and how I collaborate with other people. And just like Workplace Analytics, I can start deep diving into my habits. Take meeting, for instance. I can see that I multitask in 11 of my meetings. Maybe that's not so good. Maybe I should think about if I need to be there, or if we can shorten the meetings, or whatever it might be. So here I can get my own kind of thoughts going. And on Trends, if I'm not part of a program, I can track my progress over time as well. But the truth is that it's actually a changed behavior just to get people into MyAnalytics, right? So we kind of have a conflict there. So what we also created is what we call nuggets. I'm going to show you the one for Outlook right now, but we're going to expand that. Mathias is going to talk about that in the end. So how that works is when I get an email here, for instance, I get a meeting booking. You see the little ribbon down here that says, looks like you have a lot of meetings next week. Would you like to reserve some time for focused work? And this is actually MyAnalytics. The end user doesn't know that, doesn't have to know that, it's not important, but we push this out so that someone can see that, okay, maybe I should think in a different way. And it's easy to act on it. We can push this see available times, then the MyAnalytics nugget comes up. It extracts data from my calendar where I have 2 hours that's not yet booked. I can click on it, boom, MyAnalytics has helped me reserve focus time, and I've actually started to change the behavior without much effort at all. And we have a lot of different of these kind of, we call them food for thought. It can be, for instance, did you know that you affect your colleague Mathias with sending after hours emails? He actually read your email late at night. Things like that that makes me understand that what I'm doing affects other people. I probably knew that if I send an email late, it will affect someone, but we've also seen in our studies that when you see it in data, it becomes much more likely that we actually change and think about our behaviors. So I'm going to stop there. There's a lot more to look at in these products. We'd love to go through it with you with another time if you want to. But Mathias, I'm going to let you finish this. To talk about privacy.
Yes. So usually when we talk with customers about this, they feel that this is amazing, it's super cool, but what about privacy and security? Will my manager be able to see how much I'm working, what I'm doing, and stuff like this? So we will now go through the privacy part of both MyAnalytics and the Workplace Analytics, so we get some more insight into this. But also this we could spend a long time on, but we do it quickly. No, I think I'm too far away from the clicker. So with MyAnalytics, it's very important to say that it's only you that see your data. This is your data, not anyone else, and your manager will not be able to see your data. And this is actually data you already have access to. All of this is in your mailbox, for example. So you can, if you wanted to, you could go over your calendar and write down all your meetings and write down all of your emails and stuff, but we do it for you. So this is important. All of the data is stored and processed in your respective mailbox. So an example is when we get a weekly email that we get from MyAnalytics, it's actually processed and sent out through your own mailbox. It doesn't even go through an external server with the data. And you can, on an individual level, opt in or opt out at any time with this product. So let's say our company buys Workplace Analytics and say we want to do this program. You can actually say, no, I don't want to participate. This is your choice to do so at any time. And you can also do some settings like I don't want to get this weekly email, for example, stuff like this. And we, of course, since all of the data is within Office 365, we comply with GDPR and our trust boundary. And this is questions we usually get. So what type of information is actually is that we're handling? It's metadata on Exchange Online and Calendar from the beginning. So this is around 20 hours of data each week. So actually a lot. But we've also added now Skype for Business online and Microsoft Teams chat and call activity. So for example, if you're in a meeting and you go and chat in Teams, this will register in MyAnalytics as well. We will not share your data with anyone external or third parties. You own the data. We only show it to you. And who will have access to it? It's like I said, it's only you that have access to this data. Although we can, if we want to, share it with people in our organization. Let's say I'm doing a change program. I want to work less after hours, and I managed to make my goal. Maybe then I want to celebrate my success by sharing this with Sofia, who can cheer me on or whatever. So this is also up to us if we want to do this. And when we come to workplace analytics, all of the data is aggregated. We will never know which person is which is very important. We only process header level data, metadata, so we never look at like attachments and stuff like this. Like I said, data can never be traced back to an individual. We will see later, but the minimal level, like drill down level we have is 5 people that comes out of the box. But you can also make this higher. So some organizations make it 10, some 15, some even 20. And email flagged as private, confidential, or right management are never processed. It's also important to say. And you control who has access to the workplace analytics data. So like Sofia said, you will have some sort of admin that sets it up. And then you will have what we call analysts that will look at the data and make these programs. And I want you to think of these people same as maybe like an HR person. They'll have to go through extensive training and stuff like this to be able to handle this product as well. But we have tons of resources on that. And the same here, it's within Office 365 Trust Boundary, and we confirm to all of the GDPR guidelines. And some questions we usually get about workplace analytics, it's what are we looking at? It's the same as MyAnalytics. And we will never share it externally and with third parties, again, no. And who will have access to the data? It's analysts that meet your training and security requirements. But like I said, the data is aggregated and de-identified, so you will never know which person is which, and you can also never go below 5 people at the same time.
And you choose yourself that number, you can configure it.
Yes, and we will come to that later.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, and this is the roadmap for workplace analytics, so there's a lot of stuff happening. We just got the Skype and Teams signal, which is super good, because as we know now, we no longer do all of our work in email. At least I hope you don't. So we're moving into Teams much more. And some stuff is coming, like new programs. We're also getting more data from the different files that we have. And like you said, also now we get these food for thought and nuggets in Outlook. But the vision of the product group is to send it where people are working. So on mobile, in Teams, stuff like this. So now Sofia went over the why. Why do we do this and why do we want to do this? So now we'll go over how do we actually do this. And it's very simple. And a lot of stuff, focus of the product group have been to making this much easier. So first off, we have to have the right licenses in place. You can buy them standalone if you want to and in the admin portal. You can also, with MyAnalytics, it's part of E5. And Workplace Analytics is an add-on on E5. But you can also make it an add-on on different stuff. And what we've done for Workplace Analytics is it used to be like we had to be, I think it was 5,000 people, then 2,000 people, then 1,000 people, something like this. But now there's no limit. But as you know, if you buy one license, you will not see any data since it's minimum 5. But if of course, we will become better when we're more people. So when we go into the admin goes into the admin portal, we assign all of these licenses to the people in our organization we want to use Workplace Analytics with. We confirm that we have assigned the licenses. Then we set up the default settings. This is stuff like if you want to exclude specific people, maybe we want to exclude our CEO for some reason, or we want to exclude a specific domain and not handle this domain information. And also we set up the privacy settings, like how many people will we be able to drill down to. Is it 5, or do we want to step it up to 10, for example? And then we, of course, bring in external data, because all of the data we have in the Office graph makes much more sense when you make it in contrast to your own organizational data. This is where it becomes interesting. So then we upload an HR file just to see how people in our company are connected, which departments, which roles, which are managers, stuff like this. And then you're basically done. And what's good also is that you don't have to wait to get the data into Workplace Analytics. It will actually load 13 months back in time, all of the data. So then you can get going once it's all set up. Easy, right? Yeah. There's a great demo from Ignite if you want to see the actual demo when they set it up. That's publicly available.
And it's also part of Fast Track now, so they help you onboard onto Workplace Analytics, and they help you train your business analysts, since this is a bit of a new space.
Yeah. So some next steps, if you're interested in this, is to reach out to your Microsoft contact. You can read more about MyAnalytics in that link, and Workplace Analytics in that link, and also read more into the different research we've done about this when they made a product.
All the numbers I showed in the beginning was from different studies at that insights.office.com, if you want to read about them.
Yeah. So you can connect with us. You can scan the code if you have an iPhone or an Android app. And then we open up for some Q&A. We have some more time, right? Yeah.
Yes.
This is